Hey everybody, Josh here. It's another Excel data chill sesh with me and my cat. We're going to be looking at a little data about the time we spent with different people throughout our lifetimes. Time spent alone, with family, coworkers, etc. It's a pretty fascinating data set because time spent alone and with family and friends really has a huge impact on our overall well-being and even our mortality rate. I think it's going to be really interesting looking at this, but I just want to say that this is all about making this kind of analysis more accessible to anyone. Just if you've ever used Excel, this is something that you can probably do. We're leveraging a lot of skills you probably already have here. We're not really going deep into super advanced stuff. We're just kind of taking an intuitive approach to looking at a data set, and we're using Excel as kind of the window or the UI for starting to dig into that data set in that very intuitive way. So our data is coming from ourworldanddata.org. It's like a nonprofit that has a bunch of data that they visualize and do analysis on. If you just look for lifetime, I think you can just search lifetime on the website. You'll find the set. You can download it if you want to follow along. And what we're doing is looking at survey data. This is survey data, I think, from a 10-year period, 2009 to 2019. And we're looking at how much time people spend with friends, partners, family, children, coworkers, and time spent alone. This only covers ages 15 to 85, and that's really important because a lot of the mistakes you see when people analyze this type of data relate to mixing up age ranges or timescales. So when you download a data set like this, it's typically a CSV file that's comma separated values. You can think of it as like an Excel table without any formatting or anything else, just the values themselves. And if you open that up in Excel, what you're going to first want to do is save it as an Excel file. So you can just Command Shift S to save as, and you're going to want to make it an XLSX file. That's going to let you do formatting, visualizations, all that kind of stuff. Then you're just going to click into the data. You can hit Command A to select all of it, and under the Insert tab, just hit Table. You want to make sure that My Table Has Headers is selected, and just hit OK. So now your data is in a table format, and we can start using it a little bit more easily to build visualizations and do some analysis. It's going to make our life a lot easier as we do this. One thing to keep in mind, whenever you create a table, go to the Table tab and give it a name. In this case, we've named it Time, just an easy thing to remember. But whenever we want to reference this table now, the table has its own name to make it much easier to reference, instead of having to reference a specific set of rows and columns. So the first thing you need to do is really get kind of familiar with the data we're looking at here. So we have a little sample visualization from this project showing the trend over time. It's a line chart for each of the different categories and time spent. The first thing I like to do is just say, hey, are there any big obvious trends here? Now, if you're working with a data set and you don't have this, first thing you can do is just generate a line chart from your table. In this case, we can literally Control A, go to the Insert tab, look at recommended charts, and drop one in. And we get the same thing. So if you're not starting with the chart, this is the easy way to start. We're going to apply a little bit of contextual knowledge here. So a big one here, I noticed this steep increase in time spent alone over one's lifetime. That's super important. Time spent alone has a huge impact on health and mortality. We're definitely going to want to consider that and highlight it. I also see a consistent decrease over time in time spent with friends and family. That also kind of ties back into the same stuff as time spent alone, so we want to highlight that as well. I also just want to highlight the proportionality between these better. Line charts are great for showing concrete values and increases in rates over time, but they don't show the proportionality between each category very well. So we're going to use another type of chart to do that. You need to just take time here to look at your data, think about it a little bit, think about what each of these directions mean, what each of these numbers are all about, why things might be happening. It's an exercise really in critical thinking. And if you don't have some contextual understanding of the data you're looking at, that's going to be really hard. So make sure you've taken a little time to kind of understand what you're looking at. What I've chosen to do in this dashboard is I've highlighted time spent alone, I've highlighted time spent with friends and family, the decrease over time, the increase of time spent alone, and then I've done a breakdown. And this breakdown, instead of using a standard line chart, is using a 100% stacked area chart. This is a really good way of showing proportionality, not a good way of showing total values, but a great way of showing proportionality changing over time. So let's do this thing. First thing first, we're going to put our background in, nice dark color because we like a dark theme here. So the first thing we're going to do is just drop in some rounded rectangles. This is under the Insert tab. You've got a shape option where you can drop in your rectangles. You adjust the roundness just by clicking this little thing in the upper left-hand corner. When you first drop them in, they might look a little funky like this, so you can adjust them by right-clicking, hitting Format Shape, and then formatting them in the formatting bar on the right. For these ones, I've used a gradient from mostly 80% transparent white down to a 90% transparent white. That's with a 90-degree angle. And then I've just added a little like 1.75 point outline that's in a 60% transparent white. And that gives you this cool, nice glassy effect. Now, this can be a little boring for people, but organizing your page, getting everything aligned like this is incredibly important. Just like if you're doing a PowerPoint slide, you just want everything to look organized. It's going to make your data look a lot more credible, and it's just going to make everything look a lot more professional. So if you're trying to align things and you're having trouble, a couple tips. One is multi-select two shapes by holding Shift and clicking both of them, and then in the Shape Format tab, you can align top, left, right, bottom, evenly distribute them, all that kind of stuff with these distribution tools. To make sure your elements are the same size, just copy-paste them. That way you know that you're working with something that's the same size as the shape above it or next to it. If you got two shapes on the left, try to make sure that the shape on the right is the same height as both of them, etc. Right? We're just kind of trying to keep things aligned and organized. It goes a long way. So first things first, we want a chart showing time spent alone, right? And so we know we want our year, and then we also want time spent alone, this column. We've highlighted both of them, and under the Insert tab, we're going to drop in a line chart. Now, here's the thing. We drop this in, kind of looks weird. It's plotted both series separately, meaning time spent alone is here, but age is here. We don't want age as one of our series. We want age as our label. So we can click into that line, just delete it, and that looks good, but there's a problem. Our axis here, our x-axis, starts at 1, but it doesn't actually start at 1. We want this to be age, and the age in this set of data starts at 15. That's the first time we've collected data. This is actually showing a row number, not age. So we need to get in here, hit Select Data under the Chart Design tab, and then under Horizontal Axis Labels, click in, select Year, hit OK, and now this is updated and it shows the year. So we're good to go. We've got our base. We're going to cut and paste this over and get styling. So we just paste this in, get it kind of to the general shape that we want, get rid of the titles, clean up the backgrounds, all that stuff. We just want to make this so it's just the chart, get our fonts updated. Okay, now we've got something we can work with here. If you got grid lines like this in the background, I just like to click in those, go over to the formatting pane on the right, and just get them down to like 80% transparency so they're not so bright. I'm also noticing that our series name isn't named properly, so we can go again to the Chart Design tab, hit Select Data, click into the Name section here, and click into Time Spent Alone. And now we got the right series name in our label here. We actually probably won't need this because there's only one line here, so instead we ultimately could just delete this, go to the Chart Design tab, add chart element, and we're actually just going to add a title above chart. I deleted it earlier. I'm thinking a title, though, is going to work here. I think this is a good space for a title. So I've just typed my title in here, and just keep in mind, you don't have to only have one font in your title. So I've got my main title here, Time Spent Alone, and then this little sub one I've done in a non-bold font, made it a little smaller, and we've got a nice, beautiful looking base here. One thing I'm noticing here is I don't think we need the markers on this line chart. So if we go to Chart Design, change chart type, we can just select an option without markers. Then I'm also going to click into this series. I'm going to change the color to white, the color I want for this one. And I'm going to do a little trick here. So I want to have both a line chart and a fill beneath the line chart. And I can do that by clicking into my series, hitting Command C and then Command V. Now what's happened is it's actually pasted in a second chart in this. So I'm going to delete this background here, click into it, hit no fill so we can actually see our line. Then click into our series and hit change chart type. And what we're going to do is there's two lines here plotted right over each other. You can't see the second one because it's behind the first one, but we've just clicked into one and we're going to give it an area fill. And now what we can do is click into that area fill, go no line, and give it a gradient. And we might have to make some adjustments to the line in the background here, just to make it a little wider so it shows up better. There you go. Now you got that beautiful gradient behind it, plus the line. I think this is a nice clean way to style your line charts. Now we've got another chart we wanted to do. We were going to show our time spent with friends and time spent with family and how they drop off over time. So we're going to do the same process again. Over to our source data. We want time spent with friends, time spent with family. And keep in mind here, we're not going to select year because we did that last time and year didn't go in the right place. We're just going to select the two series we want. We're going to go to the Insert tab, drop in a line chart. We have to update our year labels here. So we're going to go select data. And then in our y-axis, or our x-axis, our horizontal axis labels, we're going to click in here, go over to our table, and highlight the year column, hit OK, and it's going to update. Awesome. So let's cut and paste this over and start styling it. Okay, so we just paste this in, get it all sized up properly, drop out the background, same thing we did before. A lot of this is going to feel familiar. I'm going to make these grid lines 80% transparent. And in this case, we need to have our series labels in the legend because we have two different series. So we're going to click into this, go to our chart design tab, select data, and just make sure these are named properly. Series 1 is time spent with friends. I'm going to do the same thing for series 2. Click into the name section, head back over to our table, and we just want to reference the cell with the name in it. There we go, now we got both of the right names in there. And then I'm just going to click in here, get my colors updated to what I want. I think I'm going to be using a yellow and orange here. And drop my title in here. Okay, so now it would be tricky to do this gradient fill we have above down in this chart just because there's two series plotted, which makes it really challenging. So instead, I'm just going to add a little subtle gradient here, and I'm just going to do that by inserting a rectangle. It's just a standard rectangle, and then we're going to adjust that rectangle to just have a little gradient fill instead of a solid fill in background. I'm just going to adjust the color on that gradient. This is just like the one above, but on one side it's going to be fully transparent. On the other, we're going to just do a very subtle, transparent version of the orange color we have above, maybe 90% transparent. And that just gives us a little bit of a similar feeling above and below that we have. All right, awesome. We got our two important charts here, the two series we want to highlight, or three series we want to highlight. Now, we want to do our big area chart. This is going to be a fun one. It's going to be a little more work. It's a chart that gives useful insights. It's really visually engaging. It looks stunning. It's just a great option. So we're going to take the time to get this thing set up and looking great. We know we want every single series in this, so we got to highlight all of our series, and then we're going to insert our chart. Just going to hold shift, multi-select this whole section, go to the insert tab, and we're going to go to line charts, and then under here we're going to use a 2D area chart, and we want the 100% stacked area option. You'll see it here on the bottom right. And that's our chart. It looks good. We obviously need to update our series names and everything, but we've got a nice base here that we can then style and get looking right for our dashboard design. So let's get all the little things fixed that we did before. We're going to want to drop out our backgrounds, no border, no fill in the background, change our font colors to enough contrast so that we can read them. We got to get our horizontal axis updated because again, it's showing row number here, not actual age. So we got to go to chart design, select data like we did before. And again, to do this, just on any of your series, click into the horizontal axis label area and then just select the column with year, hit OK, and it should all show up. Now our series labels here in our legend, I'll just say series 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to have to update those as well. So all we're doing here again, we're going to chart design, select data, and each of these we click into, figure out where that data set is, it'll highlight it here, and then we click into the name, select the cell with the name we want, and then hit enter. If you want to do this without closing the window, you can just go through one by one and do it. It's a little bit of a time saver. One little tip for this, if it's taken a while to do it manually and you're having problems selecting your cell ranges for each of the names, you can also just manually type the name in here in the name tab as well once you've clicked into each series. Okay, so once you got them all updated, you're going to have a nice set of labels here so people know what each of these series represents. You can label these more clearly afterwards if you want. If you want to put big labels in each line, you can do that, but I think the legend is usually enough. All right, so we've got our chart in here. We got to start styling this. So I'm just going to go through these series one by one. You click into it, and then go over to your formatting options here, give it whatever color you want, and we're just going to go through these one by one until we got all the colors we want. Okay, so I'm going to go through, just explain how I chose my colors for this. I don't want to go through each one here because it's going to take forever, but essentially my top and my bottom, instead of using a solid color, I used a gradient fill. In this case, the gradient fill is a like 96% transparent purple down to like a 62% transparent purple on the top, just to give that shading. And then on the bottom, we've got the same shading that we used over here for time spent alone. I've also made sure that my colors for time spent alone, time spent with friends, and family all match up between the two charts, so there's no confusion there. And all of these colors that have a solid fill actually use solid fill with a transparency around 50% for each of them, and a line or a border that's 2 point wide, so 2pt is what you'll select when you're hitting your width over here on the right, and the color is just this fully, the non-transparent, fully opaque version of the color I've used above, and that creates that kind of contrast where you have a nice color outline and then the color fill, so it's really easy to identify each one. When you're choosing chart colors, you want to make sure you've got enough variation between them that you can see the contrast, right? So we've got ourselves a pretty cool report here, and it tells a little bit of a story, right? We knew we wanted to emphasize the time spent alone and how over our whole lifetime that time spent alone increases. We're getting lonelier and lonelier as we get older oftentimes, and that is very, very strongly correlated with health issues and higher mortality rates. So trying to correct that's important. And we also see how time spent with friends and time spent with families both decrease in a sort of similar curve over time. It's another factor that goes into it being so important to spend time with other people, because all of these overall trends are pushing you in the wrong direction. Then we come over and we have the stacked area chart. Now this is showing us this proportionality, right? We go from when we're young, spending a lot of time with friends, a lot of time with family, and and less time alone, but some time alone. And then as time passes by, we see these trends that eventually push us to a period in which we spend most of our time either with our partner or by ourselves. It's very easy for somebody to see that general trend over time by comparing each of the proportions on either side of the stacked area chart. Now, this whole process is something you can do in Excel, right? You don't need any fancy BI tools for this. You don't need to know R. You don't need to know Python. You can get really cool insights right in Excel, and you can build really cool, visually engaging reports right in Excel. And I just think it's something a lot of us are never really taught how to do. It's a critically important skill, in my opinion, and it is the only way to really leverage Excel to its fullest potential. Anyway, thank you for tuning in, everyone. If you want copies of this template or any of my other templates, you can hop on the newsletter. There's a link on my profile where I send out tutorial templates for free every single week to kind of help learn and get started. And if you have questions, comments, anything like that, let me know. I'll try to do my best to respond and get back to everybody. Thank you again, and have a good one.